Hello and welcome, friends. Welcome to another episode of Vintage Fountain Pens. This time I have for you a all-time star, one of the most recognizable fountain pens with an innovative design. Today we are going to talk about the Parker 51. This is the fountain pen. I bought this fountain pen used, and unfortunately when I bought it, it came without the cap, and it had a slightly broken nib. As you can see, it is one tine is slightly twisted, as you can see. But I had in my collection some vintage pieces, and I had this cap of a Parker 21, and you can see it fits quite nice. In time, I've managed to find an original cap of the Parker 51. You can see that the gold plating it isn't in great shape, and it lacks the jewel at the top of the cap, but it fits like a glove. An interesting fact, although the two caps are similar in size, this cap, it is a difference because this cap can go till this. Certainly the original cap, you can post it longer, and this is only post till this level, and it's a difference between them. With the cap of the Parker 21, it has a length of 142 millimeters, and with its original cap, it has a length of approximately 138 millimeters. Let's talk about this iconic fountain pen. As I told you, it is the most successful fountain pen in history. It was produced between 1941 and 1972, and of course it had a series of revisions throughout its production cycle, and it was sold in a number of over 20 million pieces. This is a global product. You will find this all over the world. It was also heavily promoted in campaigns that cost Parker approximately $20 million. But the investment in development of this unique fountain pen and promotion paid out because by 1969, Parker reached $400 million in sales. The Parker 51 was first introduced, like I told you, in 1941, and it was made 51 to mark the year 1939 when the company celebrated its 51st anniversary, during which, and in this year, the development for the fountain pen was completed. By giving the pen a number instead of a name, Parker avoided the problem of translating a name into other languages. It was marketed as the world's most wanted pen, an interesting choice of words because of the restrictions on production of consumer goods for civilian markets in the United States during World War II. The demand was high and the production was quite low. And Parker continued advertising during the war. And this fact created a high demand that took several years to fulfill after the end of the global conflict. The 51 was innovative for that period. It had a number of new features like this hooded nib I've shown you, and also this interesting filling system, and this was called the aerometric filling system. Practically, the initial model from the 1940s of the Parker 51 used a vacuumetric filling mechanism which operated by pressing a plunger to generate a vacuum drawing ink into the pen. The filling mechanism was designed or redesigned in 1948 with the introduction of the aerometric filling system. This system operated by pressing a pressure bar on a plyglass sack. So let's see. This is the pressure bar, and here you can see the sack. Okay, this fountain pen was produced from 1948 till approximately 1969, and it is considered by many collectors probably the most functional fountain pen ever made. Also, with the redesign of 1948, Parker reformulated the ink of the 51 pen, reducing its alkalinity and introducing a selection of brilliant colors and renaming, calling the ink superchrome. Like the 51 ink, it also came with the warning that it should be used only in the Parker 51, but the warning was more discreet. Let's talk about the context when this innovative fountain pen came out to the market. I like the cap of the Parker 21, so I will leave this original cap aside because I don't like the gold plating. Sorry, guys, but I think it's more interesting like this. I love the silver and the black. Okay, let's talk about the context. On one side of the Atlantic Ocean, we have the American trend. And let's start with this early 1920s Shepherd fountain pen. This is a sub brand of Shepherd, the Craig fountain pen. And you can see that it has a lever filler. Shepherd was one of the pioneers that introduced this system to the American market, and it had a great success because in the 30s, here we have another Shepherd balance from the 1940s, also a lever filler with beautiful celluloid material, and also a Waterman made in the years of the Second World War, a Waterman Commando, as you can see, also with a lever filler. Of course, this was the trend of the American market and the preferred method of filling mechanisms that we can find on the American market in the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. Of course, they had a breakthrough because we are talking about Shepherd, the famous touchdown which preceded the snorkel model, which has this interesting filling mechanism based on pressure and also a sack. So this was an innovative product in the 1950s. The Parker 51, a result of the design but far advanced design of 1939, it was a product that was launched in the beginning of the 1940s. And I told you that the first had that vacuumatic system. They had a turning knob here, and you pushed vacuum. But this model, redesigned in 1948, it came with this filling mechanism. It is quite interesting. These were the products of the Americans. And here we have a product of the British, the famous Onoto fountain pen with its famous filling mechanism, which is a plunger filler, similar to the snorkel, but much older design, made in Britain. And of course, I couldn't let the Germans. This is a 1930s Pelican 100 Black. It has the famous filling piston filling mechanism and a product of the early 1930s. So we will put it side by side with this balance. And I have a product of the 1940s. let's say two products. This time we have a fountain pen from Shonaken, which has the same piston filling mechanism, and another Pelican 100N, this time a more modern one from the 1940s, and an iconic fountain pen from the 1950s. We have the famous Mont Blanc Masterpiece 146, the same piston filling mechanism, and also a Pelican 140 from the second half of the 1950s, which has the famous ink window and also an integrated piston filling mechanism. Okay, so on one side, the Americans with the lever filler. The downside of a lever filler is that they contain inside the barrel rubber sacks, and these rubber sacks inevitably rotted away in time due to the acid in the ink. This problem you wouldn't find on a piston filler preferred by the Germans, and the downside of the piston filler is the need of servicing it regularly and lubricating it because it has lots of moving parts. Parker developed a sack in a tough plastic material, and let's show you this sack over here, and they called it ply glass. They state that it has a life expectancy of 30 years, but we still can find examples of the sacks in beautiful shape that have lasted for over 60 years. These sacks were also in a see-through material which allowed one to see how much ink was left in the pen. You can see that the sack is encapsulated inside this metal tube, and you can see the pressure bar. The Parker 51, like I told you, it is a very popular fountain pen in the collectors community. And for this reason, in 2002, Parker issued a lookalike model that was called 51 Special Edition. This has a rare finish with the Empire State Building etched on the cap. I must tell you that there are two types of aerometric fountain pens. The first aerometrics are from 1948 till 1949, and you can recognize them because they have an engraving on the metal tube. Let's see our engraving. So we have Parker 51. To fill, press a rubber bar firmly 4 times. Use dry writing superchrome ink. Holding pen point down, wipe point with soft tissue. The Parker Pen Company, made in USA. So, like I told you, the models made in the years 1948, 1949 have this to fill, press rubber bar firmly 6 times. This fountain pen was made in the early 50s because the filler instruction states 4 times, and because we have the superchrome ink. We know that sometimes during the second design of the Parker 51, they changed the name of the ink specially made for this type of fountain pen, which was called the 51 ink, into superchrome ink. This is indeed an iconic fountain pen. They sold over 20 million fountain pens. This is such a successful fountain pen that a whole industry was based on this fountain pen. And we will talk about the Chinese fountain pen industry from the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s. 1980s. It is important to tell you this fact because this was a product of USA, especially after the World War II. There was a high demand of this product, but this is a Western product, so it reached the West side, the West Allies. But after the Iron Curtain, many communist countries had great demand of quality fountain pens. This demand was fulfilled by the Chinese, which launched quite cheap fountain pens, which were based all on the aerometric style and the style of the hooded nib. And I have some examples here, some of them in the original boxes. Let's start with the Wing Sung, and I want to show you. The Wing Sung has come up with this model. You can see that we have an opened nib, but the filling system is the same like the Parker 51. Of course, on size comparison, from the original, these are quite small, and the 50s model of the Parker 51 is quite a big fountain pen. Let's see also a Golden Star. This particular model has the missing nib, but I wanted to show you the same aerometric type filling mechanism. Okay, we have also a fountain pen made by Hero. They came in these colors. This is a Hero, and interesting, it has the hooded nib and the aerometric filling mechanism. Let us compare the two of them, and you can see them side by side. You can see the Chinese made quite a formidable copy of the American fountain pen, and they also did luxury editions. This is one in green. It's also a simple edition. You can see it, and the filling mechanism. This is an NOS shape almost. I've only inked it only one time, but they made also luxury models like this Wing Sung over here, which came, I show you, in this elegant cardboard box, and the product is this product, this metallic fountain pen. This is Wing Sung 235. Also with an open nib, but most important, with the same filling mechanism. And this trend was present in Chinese fountain pens till the 1980s. But even after the 1980s, in the 1990s, some of the Chinese firms still contain this aerometric filling mechanism. This is one of the facts that show us that this had an interesting design, because the Chinese could copy even the piston fillers of the Germans, but they choose this American design because it is a reliable filling mechanism and quite viable, because they don't break as often as other filling mechanisms. Let's return to our fountain pen. This is the famous hooded nib. I'm sorry that Mine is broken, but you can make an idea of its design. Why it was designed in this way? It was designed that the ink wouldn't dry. So, if I let this fountain pen here for a while and I don't cap it, when I will try to write with it, it will write poorly because the ink would be dried. But allowing just the tip of the nib to see the light of day, it really helps with the ink flow. I've already shown you the inscriptions. This is the sack. Of course, it isn't transparent anymore because of the years of using this fountain pen. My problem with this fountain pen is that I can't disassemble it. So the rule is that you must be able to disassemble this part, the grip part, which unscrews like the barrel part, but was secured with a type of adhesive of shellac. And the shellac, it isn't a problem because you can use a hair dryer to hit this part and the shellac will eventually break down. But I suspect that sometime this pen was serviced, and the person that last time serviced this fountain pen used another powerful adhesive because I've tried to hit the grip section and it is stuck. So bear in mind, they are not complicated to service, and I've managed to play with my cheap Chinese fountain pens that have this aerometric system, and I've seen that it's not a problem. If you gently try to do your own work, go for it, but with patience as always. Now, I will leave some dimensions of the fountain pen on the screen, and after that I will try to do a writing sample, and I say try because you can see this broken nib that I have on this fountain pen. I certainly didn't pay lots of money for it. It is still a gold nib, but it's not proper functional. I will use just to dip the pen this Pelican Bright Cheval ink. I will simply dip the fountain pen. Okay, you can see that the ink remains on the barrel. And I won't clean it because I want to show you how it writes. Okay, this is the Parker 51. I have a problem with it, and I don't know if it would work, but I had to show you this fountain pen. For me, it reminds me of my school years when I had the Chinese fountain pens, and some of them leaked, weren't as good as this fountain pen. So, ironically, by using the cheap copies, they made me hate is a strong word, but I don't like hooded or semi-hooded nibs, and I don't like the filling mechanism. Although I told you it's a very viable mechanism. So this is my curse of the Chinese fountain pens, and this was my fountain pen review of an iconic model. I must confess that I spent many days trying to gather as much information as I could about the Parker 51 because I can't treat this review as another fountain pen review because this is the most successful fountain pen in history. Debatable maybe, but the sales of these fountain pens and the level of recognition worldwide, it's like international passport for this wonderful American product of the 1940s and 1950s. As always, I wish you to have a nice day. I'm sorry that I couldn't make the writing sample. Maybe someday I will manage to open the grip section and repair that nib. If you've enjoyed my small review with the Parker 51 aerometric system, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned because I will follow with other reviews of vintage fountain pens and affordable school fountain pens that I buy locally from my stationery stores. Thank you and bye bye.